Okay, welcome back to Signal Over Noise. Welcome to 2026. Here we go again. Or perhaps happy new beginnings. Whichever it is, thanks for being here with me, Owen, and
Me, Sam.
today as we take you on a whistle-stop tour of my playbook for a meaningful, satisfying year. And great news, it's only got 3 steps. And one of them is really just a part A and a part B. It's attention and contingent action, which will split apart into action and then contingency. In this episode, I will make the case, using polling data and human psychology, that meaning, purpose, and life satisfaction are not mysterious, ephemeral things that flicker in and out of our minds and hearts beyond our control, but emergent properties that we can bring into existence through our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, or, as I'd prefer to call them, just because it's simple, our feelings, thinkings, and doings. 3 steps, let's begin. Step 1, attention. We all exist within a giant goldfish bowl called the attention economy, and there are some bloody big sharks in the bowl with us. Think Meta, Google, TikTok, and all the other multi-billion-dollar companies that seek to dictate and control our attention for their profit. Our attention is not just what we are presently aware of, it's the direction of the arrow of our consciousness. What we orientate our consciousness towards is what we end up thinking about, emoting or feeling, and acting on. We cannot continue to give it away for free to these corporations that basically view us as walking, talking cash machines where they just repeatedly punch in 4-digit numbers in the hope that money will come out of us. First, we'll cover why they're so good at robbing us of our attentions, and then we'll cover what to do about it. To do it, they use at least these 4 psychological hacks: dopamine activation, the easy path, supernormal stimuli, and the zero price effect. Let's begin at the end with the zero price effect, which, as described by Dan Ariely in Predictably Irrational, is every time something costs us something, we do a cost-benefit analysis. Is the reward worth the cost? However, if we make something free at the point of use, we often completely skip the cost-benefit analysis and just jump right in. Because it costs no money, we forget to consider the price we pay in our time, energy, emotions, and attention. This is commonplace across all of social media and a lot of the other services that are vying for our attention. Next, supernormal stimuli. We spoke about this one in the Atomic Habits James Clear episode with the example of the ground nesting birds that adopt the volleyball and treat it better than they treat their own eggs. Online, things are often louder, brighter, and more rapidly changing than the environments we actually live in. In some, they constantly provoke our attention by changing so rapidly. This makes the world outside of TikTok seem mundane, tedious, and boring in comparison. Our savannah brains see changes as worthy of our attention because it carries risks of potential threats. The rate of change on short-form content is faster than anything we've ever previously known, so it engages our brains more effectively. Next, the easy path. There's almost no friction involved with all these attention-grabbing apps. Simply reach for the phone, unlock it with a glance of your own face, and surf. Life has never been so easy. The ease of access is attractive because we like to conserve energy and effort. And that's because we've evolved from creatures that existed in a scarce landscape where dying of starvation was a lot more likely than dying of obesity. Consider the London Underground. Always the busiest carriages are the ones that involve the least walking. We evolved to conserve physical energy, or consider the pace of adoption of calculators, then computers, and then large language models to do our grunt work for us. We're also cognitive energy conservers or misers. Why do a calculation we learn to do in school when the calculator or computer can do it for you? And last bit on this, 2% is the number of people who will take the stairs when offered both stairs and an escalator. Why is that? Again, we conserve energy. We pick the easy route most of the time. Lastly, dopamine activation. Dopamine makes us feel good. Particularly, it makes us feel good in anticipation of a reward. It's the tool that makes gambling addictive, the hope of a big reward. Social media content algorithms always offer the possibility of something great next, and there's no risk of significant financial loss as with gambling either. So they've removed the downsides from gambling, but it's retained all the addictive qualities of variable, unpredictable rewards. So they use those things to rob us of our attention. And as I've mentioned, our attention is the arrow of our consciousness, and our consciousness might just be the most valuable thing in the universe. Indeed, your consciousness probably should be to you. And many people wish to bend the arrow in directions that satisfy them and their needs, not you and yours. Here's how you can wrestle back your attention in 4 steps. 1. See it as a trainable skill and a valuable commodity. We must value it enough not to give it away cheaply. 2. Ask, would I pay a single penny or a single cent for this? This goes back to the zero price effect. We often value money, which is touchable, countable, and collectible over time, over the intangible and uncertain and hard to quantify property of time. So if we ask what we would pay in money for these services, we are forced to do a cost-benefit analysis, which hopefully will also involve our time. And often many of these attention sinks simply won't make the cut when we do this analysis. 3. Environmental design. The attention sink apps all have the same fatal flaw. Basically, you need to already have your phone in hand. And they're very hard to put down, but if you can stop yourself picking it up, you'll be all right. For this, I like the example given by George Mack on Chris Williamson's Modern Wisdom of having a kale and a cocaine phone, having 2 phones, one of which is souped up with all the most addictive apps that you enjoy in your free time, and the other one is completely without them, and that's the one you're going to take into productivity spaces. Now, many people might say that's all right for him, but not for me, because I can't afford to have 2 phones. But there are so many good high-spec Chinese and Indian imitations on the market that what you can do is next time you go and replace your phone, split the money in half and get 2 phones that are a lot better than half as good as the one you otherwise would have got. And then you've essentially done it each time you make the choice to pick up the kale phone instead of the cocaine phone. And 4, force your own hand. A famous writer once said, "The muse visits he who is sat at his desk writing, not he who is out looking for inspiration." Another famous writer, Victor Hugo, who gave us Les Miserables, would apparently have his servant lock him in a windowless room in nothing but an oversized nightie with just a writing desk until he had done his word count for the day. This is really just exaggerated environment design, but it forced him to put his attention where he wanted it to be, working on what he valued and what mattered to him. Sam, a penny for your thoughts.
Yeah, sweet. A few reflections. I too had heard about, I hadn't heard it in those words, the kale versus cocaine phone, but I'd heard of an example of somebody who, I think it was on Reddit, where someone said, actually, I just put my phone into grayscale permanently, which takes away a lot of the kind of, what's that phrase you use? Super crazy.
Supernormal stimuli.
That's the one. Supernormal stimuli. Because yeah, a lot of these things are like very vivid colors. That's why Instagram, I think, in the first place, took off so well, was the quality of photography that was going on there catches your attention. So this person was spouting about how they put their phone into grayscale. Not only is it obviously, of course, good because it's going to reduce the amount of dopamine you get when you click into your phone, but secondly as well, it'll help with your sleep. Or you can, what I've got on my phone is to set it out so that it comes on different times of the day as well into grayscale, which again helps to just kind of reduce that hit that I'm going to get if I do find myself reflectively going into whatever social media platform I'm choosing to go into at that time. Another thing I'd heard of, to talk about, was it the zero-sum game? That wasn't how you called it. But
the zero price effect? Zero
That's
price
the
effect.
one. The zero price effect. I'd heard of people putting prices on their time, and that is a kind of arbitrary number, but it's like, okay, cool. To me, my time is worth like £50 an hour or whatever. And it doesn't mean that you're going to earn £50 an hour, but that's the value of your time. Now, what that would mean is if you were going to flick on your phone, or maybe doing something more meaningful, like go to the gym, or do some project time, or whatever you want to do, then that's going to incentivize you away from the phone, because clearly an hour of scrolling on TikTok is going to have a far lower reward than that £50. Unless it does, then sweet. Like, I'd love to have your TikTok feed. And finally, dopamine activation. Do you think there's any ways that we could hack it? Like, is there any ways that we could use that for better? I was trying to think about James Clear while we were talking, and I'm sure in his book Atomic Habits, he talks about how to create a good new habit, you have to create some sort of dopamine loop at the front end of that new habit, which is like more significant than a bad habit's dopamine hit would be. I can't remember the example he uses for this though, which is really annoying me. Do
Yeah,
you
I guess.
recall?
And he also talks about basically when you want to set up a good habit, think about the first 2 minutes, which is to say start, and the rest will come easily. I guess what we're talking about there is that why social media is so bloomin' addictive is that it's basically modeled on slot machines in Vegas, where the researchers that were doing the human psychology trapping and making people want to spend 24 hours spending more money than they have, just pulling the arm, was they basically figured out that if there's significant opportunity of real gain and variable results and outcomes and instantaneous repeatability, then people will get hooked and develop an addictive type relationship with an activity. Some of those things are hard to mimic in doing the productive and meaningful things, I suppose. But yeah, if you can go on, tell us.
It was like tracking and habit tracking and being able to record that. So I was thinking back to, for me personally, it's like the go to the gym, track my habits, or like, for example, I look at my sleep score every day. These are little like hits that I get throughout the day, but they're for a positive habit that I've formed, which, I mean, obviously it's not as easy, like going to the gym and starting to track my whatever PBs I'm doing or whatever, or actually like the upfront cost of making sure I go to bed at a good time and I've got a good sleep routine sorted, so I wake up and then get a good sleep score. There is still that positive feedback loop of dopamine when I do get to get that PB or improve my sleep score day over day. So there definitely are some of these loops, but you're right. Sorry, it was your talk of the slot machine that triggered
Yeah,
that memory.
well, I was just thinking we could build upon yours there. What we're saying, we track it, and that could be in on notes on your phone, or that could be in Excel or whatever. You track it, and then if you add a reward to it and make it variable. So we'll take the author's example that I was talking about with Victor Hugo. By tracking it, you just, each time you sit down and write something, you track how many words you did. Then you could put that into Excel, have a totalizer, and say every time you go past, say, a 5,000 word barrier, you get a reward. You could then like get an actual spinning wheel or something, like in a game show, but just a little crappy wooden one or Timu plastic one. And you could put some things on it, like take self out for coffee. And there could be one that's actually big, like one thing that's like, it's only one of the 20 or 40 things that it could land on. And it could be like, treat yourself to a gift worth $100 or £100 or something. And then you've gamified it. You've created that anticipation, that dopamine loop of, if I do this writing thing in this case, or in your case at the gym, if I make this lift, then I'll get to celebrate it, put it down, and it'll get me closer on the totalizer to giving myself the reward, blah, blah, blah. It might be really big and really good and something I usually wouldn't treat myself to. That's how I might go about hacking the dopamine loop. but it's harder. There's a lot more friction. So I do think jacking up the friction to the social media apps is a good thing. Asking yourself what you're getting out of it, because yeah, once you're in it, they're addictive as they hook you, and you loop around and just keep doing the same thing. But when you're thinking, if you create and that habit of doing that real time cost benefit analysis of like, I've picked up my phone, I know what happens next. Why do I want it? What good can come of this? Often you just put the phone down.
What's the phrase? Comparison is a thief of joy.
Comparison, it
Like,
is often is, yeah.
and that is literally like, I feel like when I go on social media, it is literally just like the brightest, shiniest, flashiest lifestyles, and you're like, I don't even know if it's even a conscious thoughts, to be honest, to be like, okay, that's not my life. But inadvertently, because everybody is kind of presented as just a person living their life, it's only natural that you would start to compare yourself. It's like, oh, do I want I don't know, whatever, tiny home in the middle of Idaho? Or do I want a flashy red dress with lovely boots or whatever? I don't, by the way. At least I don't think so. But yeah, that phrase, comparison is the thief of joy, is the one that I actually would go back to with social media like, nah, I don't care what you want. I know what I want.
Yeah, yeah. And a similar one, I guess, would be, and I don't know the extent to which you believe it to hold true, is that happiness is the distance between our expectations and reality. And reality is hard. Like, it takes effort to change your reality. Expectations, we do have some control over, and continuously exposing ourselves to, like you say, just different. It doesn't even have to be better. They don't have to be playing the same game. The people who are just doing life differently. And then we might expect that our life should be more restful and calm and tranquil because the person that built the tiny house in Idaho has a tranquil life. And we might also expect that we would be happier if we had a golf stream because the next reel is of someone who's having a great time on a golf stream, popping bottles of bubbles and having a great time.
I totally agree, mate. That's a really good way of putting it. Happiness is the distance between our expectations and our reality. Like, as someone who's obviously moved back to the UK from Canada not long ago, actually, it is a year ago at this point, but I sometimes see these like incredible sceneries and these hikes and just generally how beautiful Canada is and the US as well, that part of the world. And then I'm living here in London and pay a hell of a lot in rent. But then the reality of it is I came back here for family reasons and it's nice to be around everybody. I've got lots of friends around here. But when I flick on Instagram and I see these incredible scenery and I see also like a lot of other things I really like the music and the cars out there are really cool. I see all that stuff and I'm saying, wow, oh, that could have been me. Like whatever. But the reality is that it's way more complicated than that. The reason why we're here is not because the UK has smaller, boring cars and London doesn't have any like natural scenery. Those are not the reasons why we're back here. But very easy to forget when you're just like in this like dopamine high of, wow, that's so cool. Look at that. So yeah, I like that. I'm going to try and remember that one. Happiness is the distance between our expectations and our realities.
Yeah. Bringing us back to today and Meaningful Playbook in 2026, I promised that after attention, we would speak about contingency and actions. And this is basically a hybridized part two, essentially. And we'll start with actions. So I think that the reason that actions are really important is that it's essentially what we're evolved to do. If you look out into the animal kingdom and you look at things that have brains and things that don't, the difference is essentially complex actions, and being able to have feelings, have emotions stoked by your environment and use them to respond to your environment. One wild example is the life cycle of the sea squirt, which I learned about quite a long time ago. So the specifics might be a bit loose, but the sea squirt is a really interesting underwater creature that I think one of the things that it stands out for is, along with the barnacle, I think it might have the greatest penis to body size ratio of, like, the penis is 12 times longer than the length of the body. But another remarkable thing about the sea squirt is that in its adolescence, it has a brain and it's capable of movement. To end its adolescence, it basically finds what it's going to stick to and live the rest of its life stuck to. As soon as it sticks there, the first thing it goes about doing is dissolving and devouring its own brain, because once you've finished with movement for good, you don't need a brain. The human mind is a product of our brain. Everything we think and feel is a product of our brain, and our brain exists to perform movement, essentially. And then we've layered all this other stuff on top of it. So actions are important because they make you feel good in the act of doing them, because they essentially eat anxiety. If anxiety is a fear of imagined future or imagined present potentialities, then doing something about it feels good. If you're worried about the monster under your bed, getting out of bed and checking underneath the bed and shining the torch down there usually feels good, unless you're right, unless there is a monster. But even then, you're probably still glad you did it. And then you're probably going to take another action that's going to make you feel good, of running out the room or hitting it with a bat or something, or a book, heavy book, whatever it is. Action in and of itself feels good. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our attention, direct it towards something that we feel matters, and then we're going to perform contingent actions, or ones where our individual contribution can make a meaningful, measurable difference to the outcomes of someone or something that we care about. So you can choose your radius of what you care about, how big you draw the circle. It could just be yourself, could be family, friends, it could be the common trust of humanity. You choose the size of your circle. And this doesn't mean become the scattergun, busy work sort of person that's just performing actions all over the place. It means aligning your actions with your attention, and then with the contingency bit, making sure it matters, essentially. So that's action. We sort of kind of know how to do it. There are different frameworks for carrying out actions. SMART goals are quite useful. You heard that acronym. SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time capped, or something like that. Like, that's how to commit to doing actions. And we've sort of spoke about that at length in other podcasts. But the important bit is contingency. If you want to feel that your action is meaningful, outcomes that are measurable and that affect things within your sphere of what you care about need to have come about because of your action. So to see this, maybe we can take the opposite hypothetical. Imagine Waymo is already out, and just every city and every town and every village has really good, efficient, affordable, automated, intelligent transportation. Imagine offering to pick someone up from the airport. Why? If you want to hang out with them, you catch a Waymo there and you catch one back. Like, you don't drive a car. So imagine driving the car to the airport and picking them up and driving them back, knowing that humans are now reliably, repeatedly outperformed by this Waymo or whoever else. So that's an action where there is no contingent outcome that's positive and favorable. Avoid that. Action at all cost is not the point. Planning for further actions is not the point, because planning, a little bit like ideas, needs to be substantiated in doing the thing. So planning can be an important part of undertaking complex actions or coordinating combined action, collective action. But planning in and of itself is not an end. And without action, it often feels really meaningless. I don't know the last time that you maybe had a bit of a sunk cost thing where you spent a lot of planning and then didn't do a thing. Maybe the COVID pandemic was quite a lot like that for a lot of us. Maybe we planned trips away or things that just couldn't happen. The plan of itself, often not that good for much if it's not backed up with actions. So, part 3, let's get to that contingency, which we've already spoken a little bit around and through. Basically, what we need to be able to do is measure for effect. We need to measure that there are some measurable outcomes from our actions and that they're having the intended effects and that the unintended consequences are not more negative than the positive effects that have come out of what we've gone about doing. So yeah, that's it really. And the Margaret Mead quote, don't ever, I'm going to butcher this, don't ever concern yourself that the actions of a small group of well-intended individuals can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So, yeah, I guess another point on that contingency is it can feel quite daunting to think that actually the thing that I want to spend my attention on and the thing that I want to do is something really big. Now I've been told that I need to do something that has some measurable outcome. That is true, but sometimes when we're undertaking long-term projects or large-scale things, it's like there's an inertia and it's like steering, that big tanker that ran aground in the Suez Canal. Like whatever you do to the steering wheel now, it's going to take a little bit of time to be borne out. And I think there's also an important point in that about matching the scale of your action to the problem that you're trying to address. So, for example, the climate crisis, any individual action, no matter how impressive, is not going to arrest it. Even national level actions don't arrest it because a warming planet has asymmetric effects that don't respect national borders. So you would have to be part of some action that is much bigger than the self. If what you want to do is provide stable food on the plate for your family, then the actions might be individual. It might be go to work. It might be something you're already doing in that instance, but just knowing that there is a contingent outcome that is good for people you care about, or the abolition of things that are bad for people you care about, based on your actions, will reinforce that these are fucking good, and you should keep doing it, and that what you are doing has meaning, and therefore you and your 2026 self has meaning. So that's it. Thoughts, Samuel?
Try to remember what the three things were. They were, if I can remember correctly, from the top. We're going for attention, actions, and contingency.
Certainly were.
That's right. Okay. Talk to you about contingency. So this is effectively talking about the outcomes. Is that right? Of said actions. Okay.
Yeah. So in a line, it's auditing your actions to make sure they matter.
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. We at work have something, we try and do this thing which is like focus on outcomes rather than output, which I think is probably a nice way of like narrowing the focus on doing the right things rather than just doing things, which obviously I think a lot of us would be guilty of in our day jobs. It's like, I'm here, I'm being paid, I should do a thing. It's not about who can do the most writing. It's not like, when Elon Musk bought Twitter and he was like, okay, cool, I need every single developer has to print off every line of code they did, and they have to present it to me or whoever it was they're presenting it to. And if they've not done a certain amount of lines of code, then you're out on the street, boy. Instead, the correct question to ask is, and I feel weird correcting Elon Musk because who am I? But it's about the outcome of those actions. So did those actions push forward a goal of the business? Did they push forward a goal of the individual? You could do a few small lines of code that maybe would generate a hell of a lot more than hundreds, if not thousands of lines of code of outcomes. So this is me probably going more of the planning route a little bit. I don't know how it's best to focus that and make sure that our outcomes are as significant as they can be, other than planning. What do you think? I'm thinking about like the finite amount of time that people have and being able to focus their attention on meaningful things so that their outcomes are as incredible as they could possibly be.
Well, yeah, I think for all but the most simple tasks, some degree of planning needs to occur. But I guess, like you were saying, with focus on outcomes, um, planning is useful insofar as it advances our actions towards desired outcomes. So there comes a time where you have set your own SMART goal. It has a deadline. You have a certain number of hours per week you can commit to this thing, and you want to get it over the line in 2026. So your planning can, extend beyond the bounds of the what time you should be permitting it. And then it's time to move on to the next thing, isn't it? And see if that planning's sufficient. And I think the way that you really make sure that good outcomes are contingent upon your actions is the process of auditing it or looking in the rearview mirror and saying, I've done this. I hoped for this outcome. I expected this outcome. Did it happen? Did I exceed? How can I do it better next time?
Yeah, good point, Owen. Perhaps instead of when setting a SMART goal, then it should be more focused on trying to achieve a particular outcome rather than an output or even an input. It could be like, I want to achieve something by this time, and whatever the other letters of the SMART acronym mean, rather than saying I get to spend all my time doing a thing. Well, you could fill that time, I'm sure you could, but then by focusing your initial plan or actions on the outcome, then when you do come to audit, then you can say, did I manage to achieve the outcome I set out to achieve, rather than the inputs, because the inputs are kind of a bit meaningless. Sorry to kind of like totally taint inputs without a brush, because we do have to make efforts and actions are important. But yeah, anyway, I don't know who this guy is trying to talk about productivity. Back to someone who's far more competent than I am. Can you make it all really simple for me, please? Clearly, I need that.
Productivity's your thing. Your thing. I was covering off on the meaningful thing. I'll make attention and contingent actions as simple as I can. We deserve to own our attention. It's the arrow of our consciousness, and our conscious experience is everything. We're nothing without it, and we weren't before we had it, and we won't be afterwards. We should own our attention. We should point our attention towards what matters and what makes it feel like we matter, which is performing actions on which there are contingent positive outcomes, or the eradication of negative outcomes for people we give a shit about. That is it for today's episode. Thank you for listening, and until next time, be well and do good.
See you guys.